You have a guy in AJ Brown who has all the talent in the world to get you those 1,400 yard seasons. But let's be totally frank about who the Philadelphia Eagles have been. Carson Wentz was our first 4,000 yard passer.
Yeah,
Donovan McNabb came close with about 3,916. But
yeah.
the Eagles, in my humble opinion, when you really think about it in hindsight, haven't really had a prolific passing attack. So we've weaved this narrative of expectations around this team, around these players for good reason, because there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of home run hitters potentially on this team. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, Eagles fans in the city of Philadelphia and all over the world. He's John McMullen, and I am your host, Tone DeShields II, in for a down and out Jody Mac. Now, look, you guys, Jody will be back. He's not sleeping. He's not sleeping.
So first comment we get every day is Jody up. Jody is tested COVID positive, so we wish him well. We hope he gets better as quickly as possible. And obviously, we joke about it sometimes here, telling Jody and I that the NFL declared COVID over. It's not over. A lot of people are still getting it. Jody unfortunately tested positive, not feeling well, but he'll be back as quickly as possible. Hopefully he's listening, and if he is, I'm going to try not to rip Nakobe Dean and get Jody upset.
Right, and I'll try my hardest not to take a crap in Jody's seat, right? I'm going to try to hold it down for you guys until Jody gets back. And, of course, we have a stacked show for you guys. We have Jeff Kerr from CBSSports.com coming in at 8:20, and we also have Ed Kracz from Sports Illustrated Eagles Today coming in at 9:20. You know those guys always give us great content to discuss. But, let's not waste any time, John. There was something I was doing some research on last night, and I came across this article via Bleacher Report written by an Alex Ballantyne. And as we all know, it's the season of the list. Everyone has their top 5 everything, top 10 anything, who's the most important, who's the best. There's so many people coming up with their own list to pretty much keep everyone busy and satisfied throughout the season. But this one was very interesting to me. The topic was Eagles players who won't live up to the hype in 2022.
Ooh.
Now, this is a quick way to get Eagles fans panties a bunch. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of ways you can go there. It's about expectations, right? And the higher the expectations, the lower, the more opportunity for guys not to live up to them. I mean, it makes sense. If you don't expect something out of somebody and they do something, they're surprised, it's great. Miles Sanders is a guy, like I always say, I use him as an example of Eagles fans went nuts after his rookie season. And they're putting him up there with Christian McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook. And I'm like, whoa. Slow your roll. And now that you've seen, and Miles is a good player, not a great player, good player. Now I think he's a little bit undervalued to the point where everybody kind of dismisses him. So that's kind of the big pendulum you have with expectations. So, but I didn't mean to interrupt. Where were you going with that as far as Eagles not living up to the expectations?
Right. So, I'm always of the mindset of under promise and over deliver because, like you said, you can curb those expectations, right?
Yeah.
But this writer, Alex Ballantyne, indicated 3 players that stuck out to me. And those 3 players were, as you said, Miles Sanders, Darius Slay, which was a bit of a surprise to me, and AJ Brown. Now, we all understand with Miles Sanders, he's pretty much in a very unique situation. Well, maybe not so unique to the NFL, but unique for him, right? He's not necessarily in control of his destiny in any way. And you can make an argument his destiny may be written regardless of how he performs. If he does too well, he's not going to get that contract. If he doesn't do well enough, he's definitely not getting the contract, and they may try to shortchange him. So there's so many different ways you can go about it. Then with Darius Slay, the writer took the angle of his age, and the fact that, he's a year older, but still give him credit for being that lofty veteran, having savvy technique. He may not be a Pro Bowler again, but it all remains to be seen. And then AJ Brown, it's quite obvious. AJ Brown is not in control of his destiny in any way.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts is pretty much the locomotive of this offense, and we're going to have to see if he can actually get the team from point A to point B. But those three names I mentioned, do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have any counterpoints? Anybody else that you may want to throw into that list? Because, like, again, Eagles fans have a high expectation of this team this year, and if this team doesn't deliver with the way the roster is loaded, someone's going to have to pay. And your thoughts?
Well, I think with Miles, I kind of said I don't agree with Miles because I don't think the expectations are there. Like, I think people have already readjusted with Miles Sanders to the point they've gone a little bit in the other direction. Now everybody's different. I'm sure there's some people out there who think Miles is going to be a 1,250-yard back. I always use that demarcation line because, especially when you're as old as me, Tone, you remember 1,250-yard backs. They basically don't exist anymore. There were two last season, Jonathan Taylor and Nick Chubb. That's it. So, the game has changed. Obviously, it's a passing heavy game, but also teams like to use, and Nick Sirianni is in this category as well. They like to use a committee approach because it's a position where if you give the football to running backs, and look at Derrick Henry. I mean, Derrick Henry's a guy that would have been at 1,250, but even him, as big, as strong, as powerful, he got hurt, right? That's what happens to running backs. We've seen it with Saquon Barkley up the turnpike. They get hurt if you give them 300 touches. So Miles has a history over the past couple of seasons of getting hurt anyway, missing 4 or 5 games here and there. He's not the type to carry the football 300 times anyway. So I think Miles Sanders is what he is. He's going to get you 850 yards. He's going to get you 5 yards a carry. The one sort of weird anomaly last season was he never got in the end zone.
That was strange.
Yeah. Now, I think that'll change because he'll hit a couple home runs. For whatever reasons, the home runs went away. But, he's not going to be the third down back. He's not going to be the hurry up back. Kenny Gainwell's going to be that. And, we'll see about the goal line. Jordan Howard's not here. Boston Scott seems to have a feel for it, but you really want a 5'6"? You think that's going to continue? So that'll be interesting to see how the Eagles handle the goal line work if Jordan Howard's not back by that time, which, we'll see. Or Kennedy Brooks maybe is an undrafted rookie, doesn't pop his head out of the hole, the rabbit hole, so to speak. So I don't know about Miles. Now, the other two, Slay, I got to tell you, and I hope Slay's not listening because Slay doesn't like it when he gets great player.
He also doesn't like it when you call him Darius either.
Yeah. Oh, he hates it. I don't know how he can have a year like he had last year. So from that perspective, he was so good last year. I think there's going to be sort of a regression to the mean. Still going to be a top tier corner. But I mean, he had the 3 touchdowns last year. I mean, that's kind of an anomaly. We talked about anomalies. You can't count on that consistency. He gave up less than 30 yards a game when he was traveling with top receivers. You get one hit. Look at Jalen Ramsey in the playoffs. That's supposedly the best corner in the game, right? He got hit deep in a couple games against Tampa Bay and was it in the Super Bowl?
Yes.
He got beat a couple times deep, and all of a sudden 30 goes to 60. Bang! That's how quick it can happen. So maybe just from the expectation level, but at the end of the day, Slay's still going to be a great corner. So kind of like what's your definition of not living up to the expectations? If you expect 3 touchdowns and you expect less than 30 yards a game, you're probably going to be disappointed in what happens this year because that's just the nature of the NFL. And who was the third guy?
AJ Brown.
AJ.
Brown. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again,
I get the thought. I get the thought process there because the quarterback is not a high volume thrower. I talk about this all the time. And the best examples I give are Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr. you know the Vikings receivers and the Raiders receivers are going to put up numbers. You know it because they have high volume throwers. Are they going to win games? You know, Justin Jefferson, Eagles fans know because of Jalen Reagor. I mean, the guy's been unbelievable. But you also have to realize if Justin Jefferson was here, he's not here with Kirk Cousins, who throws for 4,000 yards every stinking single season dating back to when he was in Washington. A bad year for him is like 3,900. So that's part of the receiver. I always talk about receivers, guys who get the football, Tone. They are at the mercy of the vehicle that gets them the football. Now, the good thing about A.J. Brown, he comes from a situation which is basically the same in Tennessee, where it's run first with Derrick Henry. Ryan Tannehill's probably a little bit better than Jalen Hurts when it comes to throwing the football, but he's not Derek Carr. He's not Kirk Cousins. And he puts up 1,000-yard seasons. He's had 2 already. He would have had a third. He'd be 3 for 3 if not for injuries. So, again, what's your expectations? Do you want 1,500 yards like Justin Jefferson? You're probably going to be disappointed. If you're counting on 1,100, he'll probably get there.
And
he's healthy.
And that's my thing, right? Because, you have a guy in A.J. Brown who has all the talent in the world to get you those 1,400 seasons. But let's be totally frank about who the Philadelphia Eagles have been. Carson Wentz was our first 4,000-yard passer.
Yeah.
Donovan McNabb came close with about 3,916. But the Eagles, in my humble opinion, when you really think about it in hindsight, haven't really had a prolific passing attack. So we've weaved this narrative of expectations around this team, around these players for good reason, because there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of home run hitters potentially on this team. And that brings me to some honorable mentions who I think they've been getting a lot of love this offseason, but there's still a chance that these guys can flame out. One of the guys that I've thought about was Quez Watkins. And look, I'm a Quez Watkins fan. I love what he brought to the table last season. Quez Watkins was a home run hitter for us. He was that utility guy, came in. He saved a lot of drives for us. Let's be totally honest. He saved a lot of bad throws from Jalen Hurts. But I think it's a bit unfair or unrealistic to really crown Quez Watkins so early in his career, knowing that there's a chance that he can actually get less touches this year because of A.J. Brown. Because of Dallas Goedert, beginning to come into his own as well. And also later on in the show, I want to talk about that article that you and Ed Kratz have been crafting about the top 25 guys. I know Dallas Goedert just, cracked your top 5 at number 5. So,
and by the way, he was number 1 for me. Kratz is the reason he's so far down.
Kratz had him at number 8, number 9,
something like that, which is crazy. So we'll rip him about that later.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because I'm a huge Dallas Goedert fan, and again, we'll get into all that. But Quez Watkins, a guy who's been getting a lot of love. Marcus Epps, a guy who's been getting a lot of love, and James Bradberry. And I know fans may not want to hear this, but there's a chance. James Bradberry had a down year last year. That's just the reality. Do I personally agree it was that bad? No, I don't think it was that bad. I just believe he was on a bad team, and he was left hanging a lot by his safeties. And then Marcus Epps, a guy who has shown some flashes of impact, but again, we haven't seen him in a full stretch of a season. How will he do when he's gotten beat? Will he recover? Does he have a short-term memory? There's things that we have to keep in mind in a 17-game stretch. So out of those names I mentioned, Quez Watkins, Marcus Epps, James Bradberry, what are your thoughts on those guys potentially having breakout seasons, but also being at risk of a bust season as well?
Well, I don't know if a guy like Bradberry can have a breakout season because he's been a Pro Bowl player in the past. So, it's more like, can he bounce back to being a Pro Bowl level player? One of the positive things, we had Pat Leonard on a couple, probably 3-4 weeks ago, who covers the Giants, does a great job for the Daily News up there, had mentioned James. He played hurt a lot of last season. And, that to me is a positive sign from the perspective of, well, maybe that's the reason you saw a little bit of a downtick from James Bradbury. I think he's a good player, and he'll continue to play like a good player, and he's a proven player. And I think this defense and having Slay playing opposite him will only help him because he doesn't have to deal with the number one receivers. He'll probably be and he'll probably get an opportunity to make a few more plays, Tone. The other guys, though, the younger players, look, man, I woke up, I think it was 10 days ago or so, and somebody's trying to tell me Tyler Boyd isn't as good as Quez Watkins, the third receiver on the Bengals, who's got 2 1,000-yard seasons. And I'm like,
my goodness.
Boy, I didn't think I was going to wake up to this nonsense. I mean, Quez has got a couple problems, and one is A.J. Brown is here now. So when we talked to Nick Sirianni last year, we would always say, look, game planning starts with 6 and 88, which is Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. Turned out by the end of the season, it was really 88 and 6. It was really Goddard first because Jalen got really comfortable with him, and then Devontae. This year, they're going to start with 11, then 6, then 88. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. You're in the crumb category there. And again, we're not talking about 4,500-yard passing seasons. You mentioned this franchise as a whole had one 4,000-yard. So I always bring this up with Jody. All right, Kirk Cousins, average quarterback, right? Probably right. I call him the demarcation line from being he's probably better than your quarterback, but he's not good enough to win with, right? This is Kirk Cousins since he took over as a starter in Washington. 41-66, 49-17, 4,093, 42-98, 42-65, 42-21. His only season under 4,000 yards is when the year Dalvin Cook went nuts and he was still over 3,600. That's Kirk Cousins. That how many? I got to count up. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 7 seasons with over 4,000 yards.
I always say if you stick Jalen Hurts' mentality on Kirk Cousins, you have maybe the perfect quarterback. Kirk Cousins, he can throw the pill, but crunch time, big games, prime time, especially.
Exactly.
He lacks the gene.
What I'm trying to say is there's a difference between high volume throwers and winning football games. Statistics are about high volume throwers, and to have big statistics, you need high volume throwers, and the Eagles don't have that, and they haven't had it for much of their history, to be honest. And again, they have one. This is a run-of-the-mill, middle-of-the-road quarterback who's got 6 by himself. So if you're expecting 1,300 yards from A.J. Brown, 1,100 yards from Devontae Smith, 800 yards from Quez Watkins, you're going to be disappointed. That's all I'm saying.
Yep. And unfortunately, like you said, having a guy like A.J. Brown there, Dallas Goedert is going to need to be fed. You brought in Zach Pascal, who knows how what his usage will be in the long term. Devontae Smith, you still got your running backs that they're going to kick the ball to. Jalen Hurts may take off and run. There's so many different nuances involved with this team that it's kind of hard to really give anyone a real true stat prediction because ultimately this offense continues to evolve. But you guys, we have our guest Jeff Kerr in the building. We have him coming up in the next segment. He's John McMullen. I'm Tone DeShields II. You guys are tuned into Birds 365 while I'm in for Jody Mac, the man, the myth, the legend. Keep it locked, you guys.